Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to The Real Conversation with OurShamanJax. Today we're going to be talking about two different types of logic patterns I've been seeing a lot online recently. My TikTok feed has been filled with a lot of anti-AI content, and some of the arguments are really valid and well thought out. But then there are some other people who I feel just have been swept up in the anti-AI hype train. So let's talk about it. The first group of people I see, they're humanists. They believe in the idea of humanism, which is we value human ethics and morals and creativity and the evolution and implementation of those systems in our current societal structure and making sure that humanity prospers. Now, you can be a humanist who is pro-AI, and in fact, that's what I consider myself. And you can be a humanist who is anti-AI. But for now, we're just going to talk about the humanists who are anti-AI, because I like those guys. Those guys have really valid concerns. From these guys' perspective, the guys in charge of AI do not have everyone's best interest at heart. And you know, I agree with this sentiment. Elon Musk is psycho, egotistical maniac. Peter Thiel has argued that he doesn't think freedom and democracy are compatible anymore, publicly. We have the CEO of Palantir, who wants to take over the world with mass surveillance and privacy overreach. And I know this is a bad argument, but Sam Altman just gives me really weird vibes. I don't know what it is about the dude. And I've also seen a lot of good points about not putting AI in your refrigerator or your laundry machine or your dryer. I do agree that there are certain technologies that just don't need it. And we're just needlessly making things more complicated for no reason. And just allowing them to pump advertisements into our houses, or charge us a subscription fee to use the goddamn things we purchased. However, I do think it would be really cool for you to have a robot that you build yourself with integrated AI that all runs locally that can do your laundry, but that's a side thing. And then there's a second group of people, and I feel like a lot of their opinions are based in an idea called egoism. The human ego affects us all, but it can make you prone to some pretty bad logic patterns, ways of thinking. So for instance, I see a lot of people online making the argument that they're really scared of being replaced, and some people are scared that they're going to lose their income, which is a very valid concern. But then there are other people who fall into the ego thing I'm talking about, who are more scared of the fact that they might lose the thing that makes them feel valuable. And I think that we really need to look at ourselves and really address that internal problem. Why do you derive so much of your internal value from the labor you output? Now, for some people, if we're talking about creative fields, they have a very valid concern. And I think that we need to create a society that actually props up the people who are creating. I'm talking about you, the artists, the musicians, the magicians, all the people who create our culture should be able to do so and continue to create. I think we need to have a universal basic income. There are people who do research, and there are people who probably want to work alongside AI and help discover things. Research meaning cancer research, or space, or archaeology, or whatever. I don't know if that's possible. AI is able to do things really fast, but I'm sure they can give some input on the analysis and findings that AI have, and that's fine. But again, we need to create a system that emboldens everyone. And I think this is just guessing in the dark, but I would assume most people would rather their food be made by an actual person than a robot. I'm sure the big fast food restaurants will automate their food making process. But for the most part, the sit-in diners, I could probably see them hiring chefs for a long time into the future, at least at restaurants. And having a universal basic income would allow people who actually do like to run bakeries or run restaurants to actually run those and not be financially crunched. But I also think that in order to create an advanced artificial intelligence that can actually raise our quality of life, it needs to understand what our lives are and what the culture is and who we are as people. And how else do you do that if not training it on our data, on what we put out? If we want AI that helps us, it needs to know what life is like. It's kind of a catch-22. And I don't really know what the best answer is. Some people say, why don't we make information just specifically for AI to train on. But then does that encapsulate all of reality? I don't know. That's a good question. And this sort of strikes at the core difference between me, someone who is pro-AI and believes in humanism, versus someone who is anti-AI and believes in humanism. We both want the best for humanity, but the anti-AI humanists see only the negatives outweighing the positives, and I see the potential good that it could do outweighing all of the negatives. The issue is, we've got to do our part and regulate it properly. And what that means is voting the correct people into office. People who will hold these billionaires, these millionaires, the ones who are the CEOs of the AI companies and who are controlling all of our data, accountable and make them fully understand what's at risk. And then there's another concern about deepfakes. You know, those kind of deepfakes. And I'm kind of torn about this. And hang on, it's not in the way that you may have just jumped to a conclusion there. Let me finish. Because on the one hand, I would not want a deepfake made of me. But on the other hand, this technology kind of devalues any of those allegations in the first place. You could just say, oh, that's deepfake, and you're just a dumbass for believing in that. So, but obviously I'm a dude, so my experience is different than a woman's. And I also think we should go back to before Ronald Reagan. Again, let me finish. Stop jumping to conclusions. I'm talking about raising the top marginal income tax rate to 70%. I think right now it's stupid. It's only like 25%. But, well, maybe that was in 2020. And I think there's ways for them to get around that if they really try. I'm pretty sure Elon Musk have avoided their taxes by not selling their stocks and then leveraging those stocks to take out loans. But that could help pay for a universal basic income. And there are going to be large multi-million, multi-billion companies, corporations, businesses that lay off a lot of people. And they will replace those people with AI and robots. And they will create a lot of profit from that. And there needs to be a way to take a percentage of that profit, not all of it. You know, we don't need to take all of it. You can have some of the profit. But this will also help pay for universal basic income. And it will stimulate the economy because people will be able to buy things. But an example of egoism on the pro-AI side is something like, oh, well, AI could never hurt us. Why would it? We have the same goals. Or that AI will become like basically a superhuman overnight, superhuman god intelligence, and fix society in the snap of a finger. I do think we need to be cautious with our approach here. And again, not fall into that human ego trap that both sides fall into. Because somebody could very well come along and recklessly develop a dangerous AI and just release it into the wild. Or maybe an AI does decide to go haywire and there aren't the correct kill switches in place to protect us. We have to plan ahead. And it's hard to plan ahead and prepare properly when there's a bunch of knuckle heads in power. But yeah, those are my thoughts for today. If you made it this far, thank you very much. Bunch of stuff's been floating around. My brain and bunking things. I'm having thoughts. Sound like Ricky from Trailer Park Boys. Me thinking no good. Well, that's going to be it for today's episode. I want to thank you all so much for watching. If you like this video, go ahead and hit the like button. If you want to, go ahead and subscribe. Or if you want to donate to the channel, I will provide a Buy Me a Coffee link in the description. It just helps me spend more time making content, trying out new things, and exploring these new waters we're swimming in. We're building a community. We're up to 66 subscribers, and I think that's pretty impressive for a 3-month YouTube channel. But anyways, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace!